Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Women and Alcohol Live. I'm your host, Nancy McKay, and today my special guest is Donna Mazzitelli. Donna is a writing coach, an editor, and a book publisher. Donna moved to Denver about 15 years ago from California. And on February 20th, 1993, after a sign from the universe, which we all get, Donna decided to quit drinking, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about that as we go forward. Today, Donna lives with joy, gratitude, and immense compassion for anyone who's traveling the path from addiction to recovery. So we will be having adult conversation, and there's a very good chance, if you know me, that there's going to be some adult language. So if you have children in the house, now's a good time for earphones. So thank you so much, Donna, for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. Well, it's my pleasure to be here with you. I'm very excited. I think what you're doing is awesome. This is great that you're bringing a platform like this to people, to women especially.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And if any of our viewers want to leave a comment for us, you can go to StreamYard.com/Facebook so that StreamYard can access your name. Otherwise, we'll see the comment, but we won't know who posts it. So if you have any questions or comments as we go along, just put them in the chat box and we will answer them. So, Donna, tell us a little bit more about your background and when you started drinking.
So, it's funny because I have journaled about this in the past, that my introduction to alcohol was at my family table. My grandparents were from Italy, and my grandfather used to make wine in his garage in the basement. And he had a big wine vat, and I have a very vivid memory of my father holding me up at the top of the wine vat and leaning in so I could smell it. Oh, I hated the smell of it. And my grandfather laughing. He was in there actually stomping the grapes at the time. And he was laughing at me because, yeah. So, and then I have memories of my grandfather had a place in the basement where he stored all the wine, and he also had a sweet wine. And so my sister and my sister's 2 years younger than I am, it was a treat for my dad to bring us down and let us sit with them while my grandmother was cooking dinner and my mom was helping her. And we would get a little teeny, like a shot glass of Marsala. And so, then I can remember asking, could I have more? And my father would go, no, that's enough. You can't. And my father wasn't Italian, but he was like, no, you're not having more. But then at the dinner table, we were allowed to have wine. And so, but my grandfather's wine was very strong. So my mom said, if you have it, you have to have a little bit of wine, and it would be all filled up with water on top of that. And I can remember that my sister would always not want it. Oh, and you had to make that decision before dinner started, because if it was either wine or milk, they believed that if you drank milk, you couldn't drink wine on top of it. So it would curdle or something. So you had to make that decision before dinner. So I would always opt for a glass of wine. And at that point, it was because I saw that my grandfather, who was a cantankerous, a difficult man, really. I mean, he was he was kind of frightening, to be honest. And his smile, and it was a pride that showed up in his face that I wanted, that any of us wanted some of it. So I just got it early on that was something that Nonno, I called him Nonno, in Italian for grandfather. Nonno was pleased with me. So I would always have some wine. So it goes all the way back to, I was probably, 5, 6 years old. At least that's what I remember, how old I was that I remember.
Wow.
So beginnings, yeah. But we didn't drink in my home. In my, growing up with my parents, we didn't drink at the table. So that was only at my grandparents' table that happened.
Okay.
And then I wasn't a party girl. I didn't drink in high school. I wasn't the party person. I actually I remember my first big event was going with girlfriends to Hawaii after we graduated high school. I was the last one to turn 18 in July, and we were desperately waiting for that because at 18 in Hawaii at the time you could drink. So we all went over, and there were 7 of us, and we went to Oahu, and that was my first official drinking. And I can remember one of the nights just getting so drunk that the next day we were flying to Maui from Oahu, and I was vomiting in the bathroom before the flight, and then on the flight, on the puddle jumper, getting sick, and then got to the airport in Maui and said, I got to go back. I can't even stay. And I got a flight back and ended up in the hotel all day long while all my girlfriends were having a blast in Maui. And that night I finally could eat, and they took me out for, I remember having a chocolate milkshake. So anyway, yeah, that's my first big drunken experience that I remember.
Yeah, that's a rough one. Having to get on a plane the next morning and it
was terrible. Yeah. It was terrible. It was just disgusting. And I was getting sick of my towel, so I had to carry all of that back to the hotel room. The taxi driver, I'm sure he just couldn't even believe what was happening, having to endure that. So yeah. But so I don't know. It just kind of progressed from there. It was never a problem for a long time. I mean, I had those kind of incidents, but never really a problem until I would say it was in my there's glimpses maybe in my 20s, but not so much. It was more in my 30s that I think where I started drinking more frequently and drinking after work, drinking more regularly. That's when it really started. I started shifting.
Yeah.
And there just became a time when I had a girlfriend who was in recovery, who was, in AA. And I guess I was in my early 30s at the point. And I can remember talking to her and asking her, because she didn't drink, but I would go to her place and hang out with her and her children while my husband was away on a trip for work. And I would, just out of curiosity, how is it that you don't, and what, trying to understand her story and what happened. And of course, not yet asking questions like, am I an alcoholic? Could I be an alcoholic? But eventually I started asking those questions. So obviously my drinking was starting to bother me in some ways. And so I started wondering, am I an alcoholic? Do I have a problem with alcohol? Yeah. And of course she said, that's only something you can figure out for yourself. Yeah. And I was going to therapy, and I saw my therapist for 5 years. I worked with her for at least 5 years, and I don't remember at what point, but it was years into our work together that I finally one day, because I was there working out, childhood issues, working out relational issues. I had been divorced, remarried, and I had a small child, and working out parenting things and parenting, in divorce. And so working on all those things. And one day I walked in and I said, I think I might be an alcoholic. And the expression on her face was like, usually they show neutrality. I mean, especially back then, it was like a lot, very neutral. Right. And I could see the shock on her face. And then she finally did say, she said, I just can't believe in all the years we've worked together that I didn't have a hint, not even a hint of it. Wow. So all the different issues I brought to the table, I just kept it hidden and tucked away. until I was ready, I think I said I might have an issue with drinking. I don't even know if I used the word alcoholic at that point, but I might have a problem. And then she sent me to talk to a gentleman, and he was worked in recovery, and he finally said, nobody can answer that for you. Again, that same answer. No one can answer it for you. I suggest, though, you go to some meetings and see if that might be the case. Well, I didn't. I continued, and it was finally one night. I mean, I think when I started getting sick and tired of being sick and tired was one night that I woke up. It was actually Valentine's night that my husband had been on a trip, and I was partying with friends, and I woke up the next morning on the floor. I had blacked out. I woke up on her carpeted rug and realized that I didn't go home. My husband was now home. I knew he was, and it was his birthday. And here I was away, and it was before cell phones, so he didn't know where I was or anything. So that was kind of like, okay, this is not normal. This is not normal behavior. Something else is going on here.
Yeah.
So, so that was the next. But again, even then, I didn't immediately say, hey, I got to get some help. What I just started asking though, is it like I called, at that time, my higher power I called God. And so I would say, God, show me, please show me if you give me a sign, if I really do have a problem, if I really need to do something about this, please give me a sign. And it turned out that one day at work, I was on my daily walk at lunchtime around the perimeter of the building. And as I was walking on the sidewalk, I noticed something on the ground and a book, and I picked it up, and it was gray in color. And when I looked inside, it was somebody's meeting book, somebody who was under court order to attend meetings. And it was AA. And I looked at that and I just went, oh my God. And that morning had been one of the mornings I asked, if you could please give me a sign if really there's an issue. And so I went back into my office and I called that girlfriend who I used to ask if I might be an alcoholic, because I knew she worked nearby and she went to meetings every day. And so she said, I'll have David, who was her boyfriend, I'll have David pick you up tomorrow and you can come to the meeting with us. So that's when I entered the rooms. But it took me a good month before I could finally say I'm an alcoholic. I sat there and I did what I think a lot of people do, is I found all the reasons why I didn't belong, why this was not, what I needed to do, why that was not a label, that was not who I was or what it was about. Mm-hmm. Because all the stories I was hearing were so extreme, and they were extreme, and well beyond what my life experience had been. Mm-hmm. So for me, that was a great excuse or a great, reason, a great rationale to say that, no, there's, I don't belong here. Until one day there was a lady sitting there who almost told my exact story of being blacked out and waking up somewhere. Actually, she woke up on a toilet and realized, that she had blacked out once again and was somewhere, I don't remember if she was somewhere unfamiliar or familiar, but I just remember that she was not where she thought where she was supposed to be.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I went, oh my God, I really, I can't deny it anymore. I really, do have a problem, and I really am an alcoholic. So that was the beginning.
Well, it's so interesting because, there's so many yets, right? I haven't had a DUI yet. And I haven't, I never blacked out. So I haven't blacked out yet, and so the yets kept churning through my mind. And, but I know for me, I was just absolutely devastated when I came to the realization that I just couldn't drink anymore. And it was terrifying, and everything, every emotion there. And there was probably some relief in there too, like, okay, well, thank God I don't have to go through that.
Right.
If I'm smart,
Yeah,
I will never have to do that again.
Right. Yeah, and I can't say I had relief in the beginning. I have to say that. I mean, and I did have a lot of yets. I mean, I never had a DUI. I didn't lose my marriage. I didn't lose my home. I didn't lose my job. I was a high functioning alcoholic,
So
and I wasn't, so it was like, there were so many yets to happen, and that's where that's what made it hard in the rooms, is the stories I would hear were so devastating. They were so drastic that it was like easier to say, well, that maybe maybe this isn't where I belong.
Right.
But when I first decided and stayed with it, I have to say, at first I was angry, and I was very sad. I remember that the next month. So I don't know what day was my last drink, but I do know what day I said I will never drink again, and that was February 20th. But a month later, March 26th, was our 10th wedding anniversary, and we had been saving a bottle of champagne for it. And then we were going to a famous restaurant for dinner. That was near where we lived, and it was Bridges, which was in the movie. Anyways, one of the Robin Williams movies where he's he becomes a woman. So he's.
Oh yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire.
Thank you. And so there's a scene at Bridges restaurant there. And so, that's where we went for our anniversary. And of course, if I was going to stay committed to this, I couldn't have a drink. So I was just pissed off the whole time I was there. I was just angry and resentful. And I have to say, even my husband, who it took him a long time to acknowledge that I really was an alcoholic. For a long time, he was like, no, I don't think you are. I think you can, you just have to control it. You just have to control it, right. Because he has no issue with alcohol. I mean, he can take it or leave it. So for him, it was like he couldn't understand it. Yeah. But at that point, that was part of our celebratory behavior, and so to not be able to do that together, there was grief for both of us. Yeah. Because that was a ritual that we couldn't participate in anymore. That was a tradition, So absolutely, that part was hard for a really long time. I have to say that took a while, to really realize that I didn't have to, that I could still enjoy life and enjoy events and everything without drinking. But it took a long time. That took, I would say, even some years to really become at peace with that. Yeah. And even to begin with, I remember anywhere I would go, I would ask for a wine glass. So if I was having sparkling water or I was having soda water, I would always have a wine glass, because then I could feel more like you who were drinking. It's like I didn't feel so left out or so different than. Right. So that made it more palatable. But it was challenging for a while, I have to say. So I can't say I did it totally, with grace and ease from the very get-go. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know too many people who are excited about having to quit drinking. It's just, and it is hard. And it's, for me, Chardonnay was my best friend. And so it was like a breakup, and it's like, yes, when you lose your coping tool, your favorite coping tool, sure. Exactly. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. But go ahead. Sorry. That's okay. Go ahead. Well, I was just going to say that for me, like after I stopped, my husband would say that, whenever we were at social events, I was always so social. And it was funny because once you took alcohol away, I wasn't that social. I became very quiet. And I remember him, at one point he was like, wow, you were really quiet tonight, and I had to acknowledge that, yes, I was always like the social butterfly. And, I was always there chatting and, going up to people. And he's much more introverted. Well, come to find out, so am I actually. But when I was drinking, I didn't look like that at all. That was my way of coping in social settings as well. I mean, it was my way to like take me out of my shell and make me comfortable. And, I lost all my inhibition.
That's exactly the same way I was. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and that was one of the things that kept me from getting sober, was the fear that I'd never have fun again.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And it
huge
took,
piece.
Yeah. And it took a while before I felt relaxed enough to have fun. And I remember the first time that I really laughed was, it was probably 4 or 5 months in anyway. And we were at a wedding, and I had, it was like the night before the wedding or something, and I had found this hysterical book, which we can't talk about on here, but it was a very raunchy little book, and I was just cracking up hysterically. And my husband Jimmy said to me, "Have you been drinking?" And I said,
"Oh, that's
no.
funny."
But I hadn't laughed like that since I had quit, and so it was just, and then it was like, okay, so I can have fun, and I can be just like I was, just without.
I love that.
Having to worry about, embarrassing myself or Jimmy or anybody else, so.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. See, I can't think of a defining moment of that. I love that you have this moment where you just remember, like, all of a sudden just seeing yourself in this, doing something that you never thought you could do without alcohol. And really having joy, finding joy in, But I feel like it was more kind of a subtle, that it started becoming more and more that all of us, I can't pinpoint a moment, but it was like eventually I could see that, wow, I am enjoying myself and I'm not uncomfortable. It's I can be comfortable. It's okay that I'm not having a drink and others are drinking. So
right.
I think one thing it really showed me in the beginning, is how much it is a part of the fabric of our society. It's attached to everything. And even recently, my daughter and I were watching something on television, and just talking about that. There's just about not any type of TV show where there isn't an alcohol scene in it at some point. It doesn't matter what genre of TV you're watching; it pretty much shows up just about everywhere.
Exactly.
So it's just everywhere. So getting comfortable with that, that's okay that's going on, but at the same time that I can live differently, that can take time. I know it did for me.
Yeah.
Where I really got comfortable with it. I didn't feel resentment about it at all. It wasn't about that I craved it. So the craving went away almost immediately. That was amazing. I mean, it was just like once that willingness came in to stop, grace, I always call it, I just feel like grace came in and all of a sudden the craving was gone. So it wasn't about the craving. It was just about the behavior. It was about feeling now different and not being able to do my life the way I had done it, and having to come to terms with that. I don't drink like somebody who doesn't have an issue with alcohol. That for me, it's like having one drink is painful. It's just painful. I remember being out with girlfriends and I would just be waiting for somebody to order the second. I wouldn't be the first one. I would never initiate, but I was always waiting for somebody to order the second or the third or the fourth.
Right.
And then I was right there with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did initiate. Oh, come on, let's have another one. Let's have another one. Oh, come on, let's have another one. Yeah. Ad nauseum. Yeah. It was. God.
That's hilarious. That's funny.
Yep. So what else has changed for you? I mean, did your, so did you lose any friends, or did anything else happen? Did friendships go by the wayside because you weren't drinking anymore, or?
There were some friends that I like, people that I partied with towards the end when my drinking really escalated. Like the girl, being at this friend's house and waking up. It's like there was a group of people that I just could not hang out with anymore.
Yeah.
It wasn't good because they were going to continue to, party in that way. And I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't going to. So I tried it, to be honest, at the beginning. I tried it, but it's like, you can't relate to people who are under the influence when you're not under the influence. It's like,
right.
You're on a different, you're just in a different element,
right.
You're on a different level. And so that I came to realize that really quick.
Yeah.
I hurt someone once that I never wanted to hurt as a result of, not drinking. And that was, she was my first office manager, and I'd worked with her for a very long time. And when her son got married, I was not sober for very long, and my husband was working, and I was supposed to go to their wedding. Mm-hmm. And these were people that we drank after work. I worked at a law office, was my first job, and we used to, like, after a really tough case or on a Friday night, one of the attorneys would uncork a bottle and we would all sit there and drink wine together. So these were people that I socialized,
sure.
With drinks at lunch. So I just found that I couldn't go to the wedding by myself. I didn't know how to answer people's questions at that point. I didn't know what I was going to say when people asked me why I wasn't drinking. Yeah. And I didn't know how to manage it. So I didn't go. And, I recently just made amends to her around that because I knew that and her son, actually, and his wife, just because I knew that it had hurt her deeply. I mean, she was like a second mom to me. So it was like, for me to not be there was very tough.
Yeah.
Now she had come to understand, and we'd had talks, but it was like I just needed one more time. That was just recent because she's ill at this point. She's not doing well, and so I went to visit. She's living with her son, and so that was the first time though that I sat and talked to her son and daughter-in-law and told them why, that I just need to tell you this. It turns out they already knew why because she shared that with them, but I just, I felt a whole lot better having said that. So, but would I do it differently if I had it to do over? No, because it was about, I had to protect myself, and I knew it was the right thing for me at the time. And I think that can be challenging for people. I know, to have to make choices about things you would or wouldn't do, or can and can't do, at least for a while, until you get to that place where it's not, it's not something you have to think through all the time. And I've come to know that time comes. I don't have to think about it at all anymore. It's been years and years since I've had to think about it.
Right.
Yeah, which is great. It's such a relief. It's such a much more peaceful place to be, for sure.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It really is.
It is.
Much less chaos.
It is.
So
absolutely.
Yeah. So Donna, tell our viewers where they can learn more about you or find you on social media or their website.
So I'm on Facebook under my name, Donna Mazzitelli. I think it's Donna.Mazzitelli. So, but you just look at my name and you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn. I think it's under my name as well. As you said at the beginning, I'm a writing coach and an editor. And so, writingwithdonna.com is my website, and that'll actually take you through even to my publishing website because I publish as well. So I think the biggest thing, this is a big piece of my story that I don't really talk about very much.
Yeah.
But this is one of the pieces of my life that I think has opened my heart even more to, I've had other experiences now with addiction close to me. And I just have a very compassionate outlook or understanding of what it's like to deal with addiction and to deal with those questions and to,
Right.
To not know what to do or not do, to not know when to do something. So I understand the pain that can cause as someone is trying to come to terms with whether recovery is an answer for them.
Right.
So and so that amongst with other life experiences, it's like I love especially working with people on their memoirs or on personal growth and development, because I love diving into people's stories and helping them really bring out the authenticity of their stories.
Yeah.
Because I do think that our stories are what helps. This is the way we can help each other. So it's like, I hope that talking with you, that my experience offers something to somebody else, and just to know that you're not alone, that none of us are alone, and that there's always a hand that we can reach for.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it's awesome to sit here and talk to you about it.
Well, thank you. And I'm really glad that you've joined me. So now it's time for some rapid fire questions. And I know you were a little nervous about this, but I assure you, they're pretty easy. Okay. So what's your favorite food?
My favorite food is pizza.
Pizza? Yum.
Yeah.
What do you like on it? What do you put on it?
Actually, margarita is my favorite pizza. So with tomatoes and basil and cheese. So yeah, that's mine. And garlic, of course. Yeah, there's garlic in there.
Well, of course. And I know you're an avid reader and so on and so forth. What's your favorite book?
Oh, I would have to say, gosh, that's a hard one. That's not easy for
that's not an easy question.
I would have to say, one book that is one of my very favorites is actually it's an author, and she's written Plain and Simple, and she wrote Everyday Sacred, which is probably my favorite of her three, and Stretching Lessons. And her name is Sue Bender. And she started writing when she was older. I mean, I think she published her first book. If she might have been in her 60s when she published her first book.
Wow.
And they're just beautiful books of just such insight and such, openness and authenticity. And so I love her books. And I'm working on my own first memoir. And so she's really one of my biggest role models. She's one of my inspirations. Especially the part of doing it later in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And last but not least, and we didn't drop any curse words really today, but do you have a favorite curse word?
I don't curse a whole lot, to be honest. I really don't. So, okay. I mean, I think I've gotten free with the F word. I've gotten freer with it, but I cleaned up my language when I had my kids.
Yeah.
And so my youngest ones are 25 years old. So definitely for the last 25 years, I've kept my language pretty clean, or at least for the first 20 years of their life, I kept it pretty clean.
Yeah.
So when I let myself go, that one is like, it's very free when I can let that rip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, wonderful. I love it. Donna, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Oh.
And I'll do a little bit of shameless self-promotion. I've just, wrong side.
Yay.
Proud author now. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And when I sit down to do my memoir, you're going to have a hand in that. So I don't know when that's going to happen. But you will definitely be a part of that. So anyway, if anybody would like a copy of this book, you can order it through me at my website, or email me, nancy@amazingoutlookcoaching.com. And thank you so much for your time and your beautiful spirit. And
thank you, Nancy.
I am just delighted that you took the time to be with me today, and I'm honored to call you a friend. So thank you so much.
As am I. Thanks, Nancy.
All right. Bye, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great day. And remember, it's your life and your choice. Bye.
Bye.